Hitman is a new film releasing on Netflix this weekend. It actually premiered at a couple of film festivals over the last year or so. Obviously, I wasn't able to make it to any of those screenings, but I'm happy to be seeing it now. It's directed by Richard Linklater, who admittedly I need to get on board with more because I haven't seen many of his films, but I did see the first two films in his Before trilogy. I think it's Before Sunrise and then Before Sunset. Great rom-coms, or they're not even really comedic, they're just short chronicles of these two characters falling in love. I think they're fantastic, so I do need to get out there and watch some more of his films. And this is another film that definitely gets me more interested to see more of his work. And as the film tells us, it is loosely based on a true story about this guy named Gary Johnson, who is played by Glen Powell. He's a college professor who moonlights as a fake hitman. But there's really a lot more to it than that. He's actually working directly with the New Orleans Police Department, and he creates a whole profile on each target beforehand so that he can come off as appealing as possible to them, to be exactly what that person had in their mind when they thought to themselves, you know what, I think I'm going to have my spouse or mom or whoever killed. So Gary winds up imitating a lot of common, I guess you could say, archetypes of different hitmen that we've seen portrayed in pop culture over the years because, as Gary says, true hitmen don't exist. Contract killers, the way we view them based on what the media has shown us, are really a construction of fiction. And throughout the runtime, it plays with a lot of tropes that have been set up by movies of the past, and it was a lot of fun. And there's a sequence early on in the film that I would say is maybe 20 minutes, give or take, during which we just watch Gary at work catching a bunch of these people who are trying to hire him as a hitman. And he catches like 5, 6, or 7 of these people, and we're just watching it unfold. It sounds repetitive, but the dialogue keeps it clever, and it's very funny in the way that he's imitating these different personas. In contrast to The Watchers, which I reviewed yesterday, this movie actually has some great dialogue. It feels like the characters are actual human beings. And not only that, but there was a lot of thought put into some of the jokes. What really jumpstarts the plot into action is when Gary meets one of his soon-to-be clients named Maddie, played by Adria Arona. I'm definitely mispronouncing her name. And as you can expect from a rom-com, he takes a great liking to her and eventually falls in love with her. So he kind of manages to talk her out of the whole hitman thing, that way she doesn't get arrested. But obviously he doesn't want to reveal his true identity to her because he kind of sees himself as this lame professor who's really going nowhere in life. So he wants her to keep that wall over her eyes and see him as this badass hitman, even though that's not who he actually is. That's another element to this film that I thought would come off as very cliche. I mean, how many times have you watched a movie about a protagonist who isn't who they say they are, and they meet someone and they put on this fake persona, and eventually they discover the truth about their partner, and there's this big argument about it. Thankfully, I found this movie to be very clever in the way it handles that aspect. And going into this, I wasn't sure exactly what genre to expect it to feel like the most, because when I Googled it, it said action comedy. This is not an action comedy. In fact, if you go in expecting a bunch of action, you're going to be very let down. This is first and foremost a rom-com, with some noir aspects to it as well, but a rom-com nonetheless. And thankfully, the things that matter in a rom-com, such as the chemistry between the two main characters, is fantastic. I really like both of these leads. I've been praising Glen Powell a lot lately, but I genuinely think he is one of the biggest up-and-coming actors in Hollywood. And this is a role where he truly gets to show how multifaceted he can be, because not only is he portraying technically different versions of the same character, but he also needs to portray to the audience how good his character is at acting and pretending to be somebody who's not. So it's just a very layered performance, but also very funny. I find it fascinating that this guy turned down a role in Jurassic World 4. Probably would have been a sizable paycheck, but he says he read the script and didn't think he'd really fit what the character needs. Very respectable, and he did produce and write Hitman as well, so clearly he has a lot of passion for a project like this, which I can appreciate. And for a long time, this movie really kept me guessing as to where it was going to be going in the third act, and then eventually something happens that really changes the game, and I think the ending is probably the weakest part of Hitman, not because it doesn't come full circle in some regards, it does. There's even a bit of substance in there about whether or not you can truly change your personality or to become a better version of yourself. The film executes all of that quite well. I feel like it goes to some morally ambiguous places that felt a little weird for the characters, especially where you're leaving things off. But this is a very fun watch and a pleasant surprise to be sure. It's a shame that it's getting released on Netflix and not in theaters. And that's not to say that there's any big action sequences in here or, IMAX-worthy moments of great cinematography that deserve to be on a big screen. It's a good movie, and I think good movies are generally best watched on the big screen. But I'll say this, if you're having a date over or something, this is a great movie to throw on. It's a lot of fun. I laughed consistently. Both of these two leads do an excellent job and have great chemistry. So I'm going to give Hitman 4 stars. So those are my thoughts on Hitman. Again, usually I don't review streaming originals that much because part of the joy of seeing films for me is seeing them in the theater the way they're designed to be seen when they first release. But I'm glad I gave this one a watch. So be sure to let me know in the comments if you do see Hitman, what you think of it, and hit that like button as well as subscribe while you're at it. If you want to see more content like this, I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.